As going on TED.com, I went under the drop down of persuasive speeches, and one of the speeches that really interested me without even hearing it yet was John Searle's speech on our sheer condition consciousness. And in this speech, he lays out the case for studying human consciousness and systematically shoots down some of the common and main objectives to taking it seriously. He says that consciousness as a neglected subject in our scientific and philosophical ways of thinking. He says that consciousness is a necessary condition, and without it, we are like zombies or in a coma. And we would be saying and doing repulsive things. He also says that there's two features of our intellect culture that likes to think they are opposed to each other, but in fact share in common assumptions. One being dualism, in which it says consciousness belongs to the spiritual world and it is part of the soul. It also relates to the whole tradition theory of God, the soul, and immortality. The second being heavy-duty scientific materialist, and that says consciousness is a computer program in our brains. He also says that there's one real message, and that is consciousness is a scientific phenomenon and is just as important as photosynthesis, mitosis, and digestion, etc. He also says that science likes to think behavior only exists and that consciousness is an illusion. And how can spirituality move something? And then after he says this, he then does a hand gesture and raises his hand to the audience and says, "Science didn't tell me to do that. It's because I told myself to do that." And with this, he uses a whole like humor thing, which even connected the audience more to what he was saying because it actually made sense. He says that science likes to give things more detail definitions than it deserves, and that consciousness is actually a very simple and has a common sense definition, which begins in the morning when you wake, goes on all day till you sleep or die, and that consciousness is in the form of dreams, and that it's in the state of feelings and awareness, which was a simple definition, easy to understand, and that you can actually like think about it and be like, wow, like I'm conscious, like something like that. But it's actually pretty simple, and that's what he was trying to let the audience know, that it was very simple to understand consciousness. He also says that this problem with science trying to give more detail to the conscious definition is the mind-body problem. And the mind-body problem is being unconscious to conscious depending on behavior of molecules. He also says that the mind-body problem is just as complex as the liquidity of water. He also says that you cannot neglect conscious because conscious is real and is irreducible. Conscious or cleverly constructed robots. That's how we are. If science thinks that consciousness is just like a computer program in our brain, that's when he says without consciousness, not without consciousness, but with consciousness and it being a computer program, then we are cleverly constructed robots. That's basically what he was saying. He also says that consciousness is observer independent reality, which means that we're so aware of things that we can look at real things like money or the government and know like, oh, this piece of paper with this president on it, that's money. Or like we see a building, be like, oh, that's a university. And that's basically what he was trying to say. Like consciousness is very important in understanding human behavior, and he talks about how behaviorism was kind of foolish and that all you had to do was understand the mind, because the mind is the main thing of the human body. He then says that that it is like it's so complex how science makes it, and yeah. I really liked him. Like, if I kind of wish I was in the crowd at the time listening, because he really I was drawn to the fact of what he was saying, and also because like I take psychology now, and it's just so interesting, like things I never really sat down to really think about. It was just like it was news to me, and I personally think he was a really good speaker. He used humor. He did a whole Q&A type speech. Like, he would ask questions, and then even though he wouldn't get the audience questions, answers, he basically answered them for them because they probably didn't know anyways. But it was pretty cool, and like he was his I think his gestures, the way he raised his hand, the way he spoke with his hands, it was really good, and he used a lot of like similarity, like comparing things to other things, like us being the uh, well-constructed robots because of our well thought out conscious mind. And well, this it was really it was good, and I think everyone should go watch it because it's actually a really good speech, and that's about it.